Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Bitter Rivals podcast. We are what day is it here? It is September 25th. We are coming up on the National Hockey League season. We have some preseason games to talk about from yesterday. We have a lot to talk about from both organizations.
So much to talk about.
The Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens. So, anyway, we might as well get right to it. So the Leafs had a couple of preseason games yesterday, both against the Ottawa Senators, split squad games. Won the first one, lost the second one in true Leafs fashion, but it's preseason. Like, people were overreacting.
Leafs are gonna leave.
Just like, it is what it is. Honestly, the thing that I cared about the most out of either of those games. First of all, Calle Järnkrok had 2 goals on line with Austin Matthews, so that's interesting to see. And also, Ilya Samsonov went shutout through 40 minutes. He only got 40 minutes of ice time, but he didn't allow a goal in the second game against Ottawa, which was the split squad that had Austin Matthews on it. He assisted on Järnkrok's first, but looked just as dominant as he always does.
I mean, he should.
Yeah, he's one of the, I think everybody in the league can agree, one of the 3 best players in the world. So, yeah. Whatever order you want to have that, that's a conversation for a later date.
We're not getting into that because that's an hour. That's an hour right there.
Okay, but yeah. So I don't know. I'm there's a couple of unfinished pieces of business for the Leafs. Like Sandin still doesn't have a contract, and his camp is kind of trying to play hardball, but like I don't really think they have much ammunition because if somebody wanted him, they would have offer sheeted him. So he doesn't really have much of a choice but to sign the contract that he has with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I think he thinks because of these injuries, like the very, very minor one to Muzzin and the one to Liljegren, where he had hernia surgery, is going to be out for a couple weeks to start the season. I think 3 or 4 weeks to start the season. And I think that's kind of fuel to the fire on Sandin's camp side, because they want to get as much money as they possibly can, obviously, but Kyle Dubas isn't going to make a slapstick decision because one of his guys is out for 2 weeks. Like Sandin wants significantly more than Liljegren, and that's simply not justifiable. And Dubas has finally decided to play hardball with somebody, and for some reason it's Rasmus Sandin. So, yeah, it's an interesting scenario. Line juggling's been interesting. Like, right now, it's looking like Matthews and Marner probably are going to start the year split up, which is something that I think a lot of people probably didn't think they'd see. So right now, I'm on Daily Faceoff, which is Frank Saravalli's thing there, and it has Nylander, Matthews, Bunting. But I'm going to tell you something right now. Two guys had insane chemistry in those games yesterday. Two duos. In the first game, it was William Nylander and Dennis Malgin, which I didn't get to watch the whole game because I was at work, but I did get to see bits and pieces. And like, I'm not just looking at the goal that they scored together when I say that. They looked to be connecting for a lot of that game. And in the second game, Matthews and Järnkrok had some really, really good chemistry. They seemed to work well together. And again, I'm not just talking about the 2 goals that Järnkrok scored. They seemed to be a dominant force together. So I could see some sort of mix like this. Think about it like this. What about Matthews, Bunting, and Järnkrok? Gaudette, Tavares, Marner. I like that line to stay the same. And then Nylander, Malgin, and Kerfoot.
Okay, so I have like two things on that. One, are you really going to split up Matthews and Marner? Like,
I think
is that really?
I think you definitely do that because the last time you did it, John Tavares almost scored 45 goals.
Okay. Actually, sorry, I got 3 things on that. So that, I feel like that's just, and I might be proven wrong here, and I may not know enough about like Calle Järnkrok, but I feel like that's not a lot of support for Austin Matthews and Bunting and Järnkrok. Like, they're just kind of not at the level you would want for Austin Matthews line mates. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do, but look at what Sidney Crosby has done for years. He's taken guys like Brian Rust and Zach Aston Reese and Jake Gensel, who is now obviously turned out to be one of the better goal scorers in the National Hockey League, but he's played alongside these guys who really were nothing when they started there. And then they get on Sidney Crosby, who, one a similarity why I mentioned Sidney Crosby is because Matthews is one of the only star players in today's game that is as defensively responsible as Sidney Crosby was throughout his career. So I don't think he needs that much defensive help on that line.
I'm not saying he needs defensive help.
Hold on for a second. Let me finish. He's
Yeah.
also going to get the opportunity most of the time to start in the offensive zone because everybody knows that if you have a defensive zone face-off, you want David Camp or Kerfoot's line out there taking that draw. You don't want Matthews starting the defensive zone. Also, Calle Yarncroke is an absolute workhorse defensively, and he does have a scoring touch. Michael Bunting showed last year, finishing in the top 3 for Calder voting, that he also is a very offensively talented player, so I don't really see what you're saying when it comes to,
I just mean
not being enough for Auston Matthews.
And I don't mean this as disrespect to Michael Bunting, but I definitely think he benefited from playing with Matthews and Marner, and I think you could put nearly any winger in the league on their wing, and they'll produce at that level. And that's not.
And he's still going to play with Auston Matthews.
No, I get that. I just feel like it's just missing a little star power. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but then the next line out is one of the best playmakers in the league, and Mitch Marner, and John Tavares. And then following that comes.
So this leads to my third point: is are you really going to play William Nylander on the third line?
Yeah, he gets his own line. He gets his own line to drive. He gets to be a star. That's the idea there. He gets to be the guy that gets a pass from Alex Kerfoot and puts it in the net. Plays games with Nick Robertson, maybe. That would be a very, very interesting matchup to see. Or not matchup, but combination to see is Nick Robertson and William Nylander. Like I said, Malgin and him looked fantastic. If they're going to have that much chemistry, you're not going to put Malgin on the top line. Nylander's a guy who can drive his own line. He's also put on some weight, and he looks big, and it's good for him because he needs that. He needs to lose the reputation of, pardon my French, but being a pussy. So, yeah, I think on paper this forward group I would say looks better than it did last year, and it's interesting what Dubas kind of has done here is every year he's added pieces. And some of them work out, some of them don't. It seems he's able to get rid of the ones that don't, and he's able to keep the ones that do work out, like a Michael Bunting or a David Camp. See, this daily faceoff has Wayne Simmons on the fourth line, and I don't see it. I'd rather have Malgin on that line, in the lineup rather than him. It's got Robertson, Kerfoot, and Yarncroke, but I would say Nylander and Yarncroke should switch up there, and then Nylander, Kerfoot, and Robertson's good too. I haven't seen them play together. Maybe they have chemistry. You never know. You have a couple more. I think you only have 2 more actually, 2 or 3 more preseason games to see what works, what doesn't. But I like where this is going, and I'll let you talk a little bit here, and then after I want to get into the Matt Murray discussion, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little bit.
So I feel like with the Habs, we have to start with probably the I don't want to say it's the biggest, but it's probably the most important story of our summer, which is that Nick Suzuki was named captain of the Montreal Canadiens. It's been inevitable almost since he joined the organization. He was viewed very highly as a piece of the Pacioretty deal. He was kind of the gem of that, and getting Tatar and the draft pick that became Matthias Norlinder, were kind of secondary to acquiring Nick Suzuki. And really, this was just kind of it was a when, not an if. He was always going to be the captain. He was the de facto leader of the team last year with Shea Weber out. I think he's kind of ripped the Band-Aid off and just... There's no speculation. There's no, will they, won't they. It's just he's the captain now. I like it. With Edmondson and Brendan Gallagher as his alternate captains, I like that. And then the other big story out of Montreal is Carey Price won't be playing this season, which sucks. Not going to beat around the bush there. It's not fun. But we've got Caden Primo who had a phenomenal end to last year in the AHL, had a great run in the playoffs with Laval. So hopefully it's another good year of development for him. And then we've got Jake Allen and Sam Montembeault, who are going to be sharing most of the net this season, which is I don't want to say solid, but it's okay. Like they're both totally okay goalies. So yeah.
Well,
and I know you want to rip Nick Suzuki, so go for it.
We've already had this conversation, but I don't think that putting the captaincy on Nick Suzuki at the ripe age of, what is he, 22, 23 years old? How old is he?
20. I want to say 23.
So putting the captaincy on him, but like realistically, we had this conversation on this podcast last season when his contract was signed, and we were talking about how right now that my argument was this contract, you pay guys for what they are, not what they ought to be. And your argument was, well, you got to pay him for what he ought to be because that's what he's going to be in the bulk of the contract years, right? Like that's but you don't know was the argument. You can assume and you can think and you can project, but you don't know until it happens. You just don't.
100%.
Well, want to know who else doesn't know? Nick Suzuki doesn't know, right? And now not only does he have to live up to that contract, he also has to live up to having the C on his chest in the hardest market to have the C on your chest in the world. This is a dude who doesn't know what kind of player he is in the NHL yet. How many points does he have? What's his what's the most points he's had in an 82 game season?
Hockey DB up here. It's been a while since I've done this. I forgot to have all my fucking things up.
That is okay. Me too. We are back on amateur hour. Here we go. NHL.com. So, Nick Suzuki, in his 82 game season, we have here 61 points
last year.
Okay. So, we have this dude who's still finding his way in the National Hockey League, who now has to answer to French media after every loss that, let's be honest, this terrible team is going to suffer once again this year. And I know you said that he did that last year as well, but it doesn't matter because he didn't have the C on his chest. Maybe his teammates viewed him as the captain, but nobody else did because he doesn't have the C on his chest. You're not the captain until you are the captain.
But the thing is, the way he carried himself through last year, he the C is a formality at this point. He was the guy when shit was going south.
Very, very important to be the formality, though. Like, that is what I'm trying to say here, is that now it's actually a thing. Now he actually has to answer for this piss-poor team after every loss this year. And how old did we say he was? He is 23 years old.
And like I was saying, he was
in the hardest market in hockey.
He was doing it last year, not because he had to. He wasn't the captain last year. He didn't have to be that guy, but he was that guy. Okay. He didn't have to be. He stepped up to the plate and proved that he was the guy, and now he got the C on his chest. And it's, like I said, it's a formality. He was the captain of the Montreal Canadiens last year. No doubt about it. You can ask the media about it, and the media treated him like that.
Okay, and the media treated him like that. He's not captain material. Okay, the French media maybe, but now he has 32 other NHL teams that don't see him as a kid with an A on his chest. Like, you have to get this through your thick skull. He doesn't have an A anymore. He has a C. That's a big fucking difference, Gitano. Seriously, man. Like, you're giving it you're not giving the C as much power as it carries in the National Hockey League.
I respect
especially in Montreal. I respect as a Montreal fan.
I respect what the C means, but when you've seen a kid do it already, this is we know he's
wasn't a C. That literal letter here makes a difference. You have to understand that. Come on, you've been watching hockey for 20-25 years. You have to. You tell me you understand that.
I get that, but when you see a guy walk the walk already, you know this is just the next step. It's like, and I don't mean this.
I've been seeing Morgan Riley walk the walk in Toronto for 10 years, but want to know something? He's not the captain.
I don't know. And my first thought when they named Tavares as the captain was it should have been Morgan Riley. But that's another story.
But it's not. John Tavares is. So he has to answer for everything. Do you understand what I'm saying here?
Yes, and I'm telling you that Suzuki did that the entirety of last season without having to be the captain. Okay. You know, he could have easily been like, oh, I'm not the captain. I don't have to fucking deal with this bullshit. But he was the leader of that room, and he said, I'm going to be the one who takes that step out and fucking, takes this shit on the chin and is the face of this, and takes the brunt of it. And he did. So now, whether the C was on his chest or not, he was going to be that guy this season anyways. Because that is just who he is as a person. He's just going to be that guy.
Okay, but so is Morgan Riley. Doesn't make him the captain of the hockey team, dude. Like, come on. I'm not going to talk about this anymore because we sound ridiculous at this point. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, back on track here. I think, I'm not saying he should have not ever been named captain. I think that you let a kid find out who he is first before you slap that responsibility on his chest is all I'm trying to say. Because you're not the captain until you're the captain. And now he's the captain. He doesn't have the chance to go back. That's it. And you don't have to name anybody a captain. You're not going to win this year. You're not doing anything this year. Go another year without a captain. Reevaluate next summer. Well, it's not that difficult. Just defer. It's not that difficult of a decision to make. Just defer. I think what this was new Montreal leadership coming in and trying to make their mark. Like Martin Saint-Louis, who came in halfway through the season last year, wanting to make his mark on the organization. I think it's more about that and less about needing a captain and wanting this kid to be a captain, to be honest with you. That's from an outsider perspective, that's what I see. So.
All right. And so the way I'm seeing it as a fan, as someone who, follows the Montreal insiders, very close, like this kid, like I said, was always going to be the captain of this team. That's just who he is as a person. Whatever team he played on, he was going to be part of their leadership team, whether it was Montreal, Vegas, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, and there are people like that. And I think they look at it as we have this really young team, we're going to be bad, but we have these young pieces that are going to be good in a couple of years. Suzuki is clearly the leader of them. Why delay the inevitable? If we're gonna suck and struggle this year, like, why not use these years for Suzuki to kind of, take those first steps at being a captain and kind of, if he struggles with it.
Because you said he already was without having the C on his chest. So why does he need the C on his chest? You just said that he already was that guy. So why does he need the C then? That's just extra pressure at this point then, right? According to your theory, that you're just adding pressure by putting the C on him, right?
But
because he was already doing everything.
Exactly. So I don't think there's added pressure. I don't think there is.
There definitely is when you put a C on somebody's chest. And if you don't think there is, then you don't pay enough attention. But
I think there's a breed of athlete, of person, who just isn't fazed by stuff like that.
Okay, and from everything internally, yes. Internally, maybe everybody can think, yes, this kid's the captain. But everybody doesn't spend every day with Nick Suzuki. The only people outside of the Montreal Canadiens who look at him as the captain of the Montreal Canadiens are people that see a C on his chest. Like, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Maybe internally, you're right. Everybody knew he was the captain. You're right. All the fans, everybody in the organization knew he was the captain. But once you put that C on his chest, now the other 31 teams in the NHL also see him as the captain. Now all the other 31 teams' media see him as the captain. All the general managers, all the coaches, everybody sees him as the captain. Nobody else did that. The only reason that any listeners of this show think like that is because you tell them that. Right? Like, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, I know, and I get that, but I don't think at that level, I don't think what fans and other players and other GMs and media really influence the players. You know what I mean? Like Montreal media hates fucking Zdeno Chara with a passion for what he did to Pacioretty. But is there any extra pressure because he's the guy that nearly broke Max Pacioretty's neck? Nope, not really. Zdeno Chara just does Zdeno Chara because he just did his shit, right? I think Nick Suzuki, yes, you can say, oh, yes, all the 31 other medias or 31 other, organizations are going to see him differently, 31 other fan bases.
You just compared one of the most hated hated players in your team, like your team's fan base's history, to a newly named captain. That is the most apples to oranges thing I've ever heard in my life.
Okay, so who else is like a new captain in the league?
A new captain in the National Hockey League.
I'm just trying to think of guys who have recently like, got the C.
The Trubin Missile Crisis.
Yeah, Jacob Trouba. Like, do you think any differently of him? Because as a fan, and as, I mean, technically, are we media, technically?
Technically.
Do you view him any differently because he has
yes,
a captain
I do.
C on his
yes, I do, because now he has to, if the New York Rangers suck shit this year, Jacob Trouba has to answer for it every night.
See, so I don't, because and this is maybe me just being like, I don't care. I'm not that invested in any other team, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, I didn't care who the New York Rangers named captain.
You're telling
really
me it's
didn't.
not. You're telling me it wouldn't be hilarious, wouldn't be an interesting storyline for you if, let's say, this Montreal, or sorry, not Montreal, New York Rangers team who has high expectations this year, very very high expectations this year. They did make a reasonably deep playoff run last year. They have one of the best goalies in the world.
Yeah.
We can agree on that. The expectations for that team are high. And yes, I think it was a mistake to name Jacob Trouba, of all people, the captain of that team when you have so many other options like Fox or I can't even, like, Lafreniere's there. Like, who knows what he's going to become? Like, Zibanejad. You have Chris Kreider. Like, there's so many options, and you name Jacob Trouba. But anyway, beyond that, I think it would be hilarious this year. Like, I would be interested in the storyline this year, absolutely. If they just came out and took an absolute dump, first 20 games of the year, let's say they win 3. Like, how funny would that be if Jacob Trouba, of all people, had to come out and answer for that?
Okay.
That would be fantastic.
But, like, if they're...
Because he's not... I don't know.
But if their results aren't based on Jacob Trouba playing like shit, you know what I mean? Like, if they just...
No, he's the captain of the team, so he has to answer for the team's shortcomings.
No, I get that.
That's how it works. That's why you have a C. That's why you
get
have
that aspect. But it's different. Okay, so I'm taking it as, like, you're saying, like, Jacob Trouba is playing like shit as part of this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna say the difference with Nick Suzuki was last year when everyone was playing like shit, he wasn't. He was the one guy who was fucking not. You know what I mean? Like, that's a big difference. And, like, oh, like, the captain is also playing like fucking dog shit. And, oh, the captain's the one guy standing out as the guy playing well. That's a massive fucking difference.
Yeah, I just don't like that. Like, what? That's a big issue now. Like that. Like, why make that a storyline? What if Nick Suzuki comes out and scores like 3 points in the first 20 games? Like, think about that. And now he has to come. Like, now he's the captain of the team. He's got this entire team. This 23-year-old kid who hasn't even developed completely in the National Hockey League yet now has to answer the fact that he sucked shit for a quarter of the season, and that's that. Like, that's not fair to me. I think give him another year for, like, you're not going to win anything this year anyway. Who cares? Why do you need a captain? And that's why I go back to saying
that's exactly why you put the C on him, because who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck anyways? Like, right now, like, it doesn't matter. We're not going to be good right now. So
Montreal media cares, obviously. That's all. They're one of the harshest crowds in the world. Trust me, I'm a Leafs fan. I get it. I've been there.
No, I know.
That's why they put the C on Tavares and not Matthews, because they didn't want that kid to have to answer for anything every fucking game. That's just, that's why they did it. Because John Tavares was more prepared for that role. Nick Suzuki's 23.
But I also think the Leafs are a lot closer to where they expect it to be than the Habs are right now.
Well, and with all due respect to Nick Suzuki, we're talking about Austin Matthews. And then Nick Suzuki. There's a big gap there, my friend.
I never said there wasn't.
So we wouldn't even give it to the kid who was Austin Matthews if we're talking about Leafs versus Habs here. And yeah, maybe it was because he pulled his pants down in front of a security guard or something. But maybe it's because we also had John Tavares, who was a 30-plus-year-old kid who was from Toronto, has already been a captain in the league for a lot of years, knew what he was doing. Maybe that's why, too.
Yeah, 100%. Like the Habs don't really have that kind of guy right now.
Brandon
You
Gallagher.
know, has
But
not been a captain in the league, and that's it. Like
oh,
if
but
they
he's
had,
a tried and true guy who's a leader on that team. I think we can agree. How long's he been an alternate?
I would have, and I said I would have. I think I said end of last season or some point near the end of last season that I expected either Gallagher or Joel Edmondson to be named captain in the interim before giving it to Suzuki. But I just, I don't hate the fact that they just ripped the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, I would have just deferred. Anyway, that's enough about the captaincy of Nick Suzuki. He's not worth that much airtime. Anyway.
And then the other big thing in Montreal this year, like we were talking about them being dog shit, we really only have like 4 like NHL caliber defensemen in our lineup right now, and we had a lot of young players who are going to be playing for their fucking spots in preseason this year. And I'm excited to see that.
Yeah,
because so the one who stands out to me the most, and from what I've seen, is Arbor Jacki. He has a legitimate chance of making our roster for opening night. He's been incredible in preseason and in training camp. He just looks. He had a fucking monster end to last year in the OHL. Won the OHL title. They went on. I think they lost in the Memorial Cup final, but he was just He was incredible.
Well, we got to see him actually play a game against the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, and I forget who it was, but he took a lick off of one of our guys, man, in a fight.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Like he was a standout player in that game, and like
that was also when he was still playing with Kitchener. Am I right?
Yeah, he was with Kitchener. That was like right at the beginning of the year, because we had joked that he had played preseason for the Habs like 2 weeks before that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, he said to one of the Montreal media, he's like, I don't want management to see me as just like a meat-headed defenseman, because he's a huge motherfucker. Like he is huge, and he lays the body. Your typical like Ben Sherratt is like the comparable. You know what I mean? But what Arbor Jacki has is he's got the feet for it. Like he can move, he can skate, and his hands aren't terrible. Like he can fucking make a good pass. He can start a rush if he needs to. So I think he's I don't want to say he's a lock for one of the spots, but like one of those spots is his to lose for sure.
Yeah, and
that's super fun.
He's also got one of the best last names in sports, so that also helps him in.
If he fucking gets on the team, I'm 100% buying a Jacki jersey, like no doubt about it.
Yeah, that's quite the handle. Like, what's his Twitter handle? I need to know.
I don't even know if he has Twitter.
Okay. So, yeah, this is going to be an interesting camp out in Leafland too, man. There's a lot of spots that are open, and I really think what's going to happen here, so we're going to see some fall off from some guys. Like Wayne Simmons, I don't think is going to get a lot of playing time this year. There's just better options ahead of him, right? Like, why play him when you can play a guy like Obey-Kubel, the guy who dropped the Stanley Cup, which means he had the Stanley Cup. Or like Zach
Aston, what, 34, 35?
Exactly. He's an older guy, and he definitely lost a step last year. Honestly, he was great like in his first 2 weeks as a Leaf. He broke his wrist, and he has not been the same since. Like, we're talking like years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, or I think a couple of years ago that happened. But anyway, so that's that's a battle I'm interested to see, is that bottom 6 and how that's going to shape out in Toronto is going to be interesting, because like I said, guys like Obey-Kubel, Zach Aston Reese has been an absolute presence. He was a presence yesterday in the game that he played. He was just very physical. So a shutdown guy who he bangs bodies around, and he's a guy you don't want to play against, and you know
exactly,
what that means, right? Like, he's not a big goal scorer, not a big offensive guy, but he can really, really lay the boom for it, and he's not that big of a guy either, so it's really cool to see. But yeah, younger guys too, like Adam Gaudette is going to have a shot here. He's a guy that I believe has played in Vancouver and Ottawa. Is that correct?
Definitely those two for sure. He might have been somewhere else too, but I don't remember. But definitely Ottawa and Vancouver.
Yeah, and then Nick Abruzzese, and a guy that I've barely mentioned. I mentioned him a little bit earlier, and I could have a breakout year here. Is a guy like Nick Robertson, man. Like, Nick Robertson is a talented player. His brother, by the way, let me just go on a tangent for a couple seconds here because I'm a little bit upset about this. His brother Jason is one of the best young players in the league. Like, seriously. And he doesn't have a contract yet. Have you heard anything about it?
Wait, what? Is he still a fucking RFA?
Yeah. He's not at camp. But have you heard anything about that? But we're hearing about fucking Rasmus Sandin on every TSN Sportsnet show that we see. But Jason Robertson, a guy who's probably worth like, let's call it 8, 9, maybe even $10 million, because if Tim Stützle and like Josh Norris are getting 8, Jason Robertson's getting at least 9.
Oh,
like you know what I mean? But we don't
didn't
hear
he drop like
that.
40 goals last year?
Like something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I had him on my fantasy team and I was not upset about it.
No.
Like, because he popped off. Yeah, I think he went for like a 10-game stretch where he had like 30 points with like 12 goals or something. Like, it was insane. Like, he went off last year and he doesn't have a deal. But you don't hear that. You hear that
again, that's also
fucking like, it pisses me off. And about Austin Matthews' contract that he can't even talk to anybody about for a year.
But here's the thing, Ave. That's standard for fucking TSN and Sportsnet in Canada.
Like it's ridiculous though. Like it's
the same way with ESPN and fucking like LeBron James. You know what I mean? Like they will tell you they'll talk for 4 hours about him changing his fucking shampoo that he uses. And TSN and Sportsnet are the same with the Leafs and Austin Matthews. And it's not the Leafs or Austin Matthews' fault. It's just
the way it is. It's the way that it's what the market desires.
That's exactly the thing. If TSN kicked off their fucking, their hour with Jason Robertson doesn't have a contract, that's not getting them any fucking, like, nobody's paying attention to that. You know what I mean? But they kick it off with,
that's kind of crazy to me.
Oh, absolutely, it's nuts. But they kick it off with what's Austin Matthews going to get on his next contract. Everyone sticks around to listen to it.
Exactly, that's what the market requires or desires. Sorry, but yeah, let's just move down the depth chart here into defense. Obviously, we know the guys who are going to be there are Morgan Riley, TJ Brody, Justin Hull is going to be there. I know people don't want to hear that, but it's true. Jake Muzzin, once he's healthy, he'll be there. Mark Giordano signed his wonderful like $800,000 contract. He'll be there. Timmy Liljegren, after his hernia surgery recovery, he'll be there. And then there's a couple of options for defense on the back end here. So Jordy Ben is a Leaf. Victor Mete is also a Leaf.
Couple ex-Habs.
Yeah, couple of ex-Habs, exactly. And then whenever Sandin signs his deal, he'll be there because I don't think he's going to get offer sheeted. So I don't know what his strategy is. Like, I seriously don't.
I mean, so what was he making on his last deal?
Well, it was a rookie contract, like $900K.
Because like
I think what he's pissed about is he was the guy who kind of went up and down from the Leafs and Marlies when they had to like do stuff for cap flexibility, and I think it actually like he got like you get smaller paychecks when you're on an AHL deal, right? So he got like sewered for some money, and I think he wants it a little bit. He wants it back. You know what I mean? Like I think that's kind of what. Yeah, but you can because, buddy, like I hate to be that guy, Rasmus, but we'll go with any mix of Jordy Ben and Victor Mete to replace you until you decide to sign your stupid contract. Or if you don't, and Muzzin and Liljegren are back, you're not playing anyway. So
yeah,
you better.
The other thing with him not getting offer sheeted is like it also depends what he, feels he's worth, right?
Well, the comparison
teams could be coming in with offer sheets and he's just not signing them. What?
Like Timmy Liljegren's at 1.4 for 2 years.
Yeah.
Like that's probably what they offered him too.
Yeah, that's the ballpark he's playing.
Down in LA, those are a couple comparable contracts. Sean Dursey and Mikey Anderson. They both just signed for under $2 million too. And the rumor is that he's asking like 2.2, 2.3 plus. Like,
yeah, like that's ridiculous.
No, like no, Rasmus, and it's not gonna happen, man. Like, if you really believe in yourself, then bet on yourself. Take a 1-year deal at 1.5, and then fucking put your head down, go win a Stanley Cup, and then go get your contract if that's what you want. If that's what you think you can do. That's what you think you're worth.
I mean, I think other teams might not be offer shooting him because they might be offer shooting him at 1.4, 1.5, and he might be just fucking rejecting them. We don't know that.
Well, there is a deal on the table from the Toronto Maple Leafs, right?
Oh, 100%.
The offer sheets come out, it doesn't matter if he reject. Like, we'll find out if it comes out and then he rejects it. No offer sheet has come in that is over what the Leafs are offering him. Yeah. That's the point here. Like, no teams come in and said, we'll give you 1.5.
No, exactly. No, but that's what I mean. Like, if the teams aren't offering him what he feels he's worth anyways, then he's not going to sign them regardless. You know what I mean?
So then just don't play for a season, lose an entire year of your development. Like, as a defenseman, that's not something you should do. Straight up.
Like, what's it? If he doesn't sign, he's going to end up back in Sweden, right?
Probably. Yeah, and not play in the NHL and play against lesser competition. Have fun. Anyway, let's move on here.
I guess one last thing on Sandin there. Just a yes or no. Does he sign a contract when puck drops on the regular season?
Like, has he signed one by then?
Yeah. Whether he's in the lineup or not is not the question. Just, has he signed a contract when the regular season starts? Yes or no?
No. Nope. No, I don't think he does, to be honest. I think that he's too stubborn. I think his camp is too stubborn. So, but they're going to have to do it at some point. And maybe it'll be a William Nylander last hour kind of thing. And if it is, I don't think he plays this season very much at all, to be honest with you. Like, I would say the over-under, like, if I'm a betting man and the over-unders, let's say 20 games in a Leafs uniform this year, but I have until day 2 of the regular season to make that bet. If he doesn't have his contract by game 1, if I have until the second day to make that bet, I'm placing that bet that he plays under 20 games in a Leafs uniform this season if he doesn't have that contract by game 1. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I get you.
So, on to the real topic at hand here. Goaltending. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm cautiously optimistic. Very cautiously optimistic. And I'm not cautiously optimistic about Murray. Honestly, I think Samsonov's going to have a good year. I think Samsonov might jump in front of Matt Murray here.
Interesting.
I really do believe that. And here's why. Who was the goaltender for that World Junior Russia team that year that Shesterkin and Samsonov were on that team? Who started?
I don't know the answer, but the way you're talking about it, it's probably going to be Samsonov, right?
It was Samsonov. He was a higher draft pick. He was better as a goaltender in Russia. And I just think that it wasn't the spot for him in Washington. I think I think he's much younger. I think he's very, very technically sound. From what all accounts, everything I've heard is he's a very, very skilled goaltender. But he didn't have the passion. And you know what everybody gets when they step into a Toronto Maple Leafs uniform. You know how this works. You are immediately ignited with the passion.
Do you guys have that trademarked yet?
The passion that unites us all, I believe, is the trademark, yeah. Yeah. But it's just the passion. Anyway, so, moving on. And that's not a slight on Matt Murray. And I would not be upset if Matt Murray came out and had the season of his career, too, and put up a .925 save percentage and just bounced back like nobody's ever bounced back in the history of sports. But probably not, like, honest to God, like, I've been shitting on Matt Murray for 3 years now. I'm going to keep it consistent. Probably not going to happen. Like, I just don't see it. I will say this. He does look a lot healthier and a lot happier than he did when he was in Ottawa. And I think we can agree that when he was sent to Ottawa, to be a goaltender for a shit team, and everybody knew it. You're going to get $5 million a year to just get lit up every night because we need somebody to do it. And you're going to be that guy. And that takes a toll on your mental, man. Come on.
Oh, 100%. Like, here's if the Senators could put a shooter-tutor in net, they'd just stick with a shooter-tutor. And that's what they would have done
for the past couple years, right? Like, that's what they would have tried to do. Yes.
But, and I mean, like, I'm going to fucking shit on Ottawa here, but anyone leaving that organization is going to be happier. Anyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Straight up.
Yeah. I don't know what to tell you. All this hype out of Ottawa is just insane. Like, they just sign a bunch of fucking people to bad contracts and then just, like, now their team is fixed. No, that is not That is not how it works.
Kills me when I see Ottawa fans going like, "Oh, like we went to the conference final, lost, tore it down, rebuilt it, and we're now in a better position than the Leafs were in that time." And I'm like, what is in the water in Ottawa? Like, I don't like either of your teams,
Constantly
but
drunk, man. I swear to God.
I don't like either of your teams. Like, let me just be very clear on that. Like, I hate the Senators and I hate the Leafs. But like, one of those teams is clearly and significantly better than the other, and it's not close.
No, not even
Like,
remotely.
it's not.
Like, I'm going to say they are probably going to get more points this year than they did last year. You fucking better.
I'll say, but like,
to be fair,
that's also like saying the Habs are might get more points than they will last year. It's like, it would be hard to not.
Yes.
Like, at this point.
Anyway, that's enough airtime for Ottawa. They just, similar to Nick Suzuki, they just don't deserve it. Anyway. So, yeah. I just wanted to touch on the fact that all the noise out of Ottawa is just, it's so funny to me. Because they're not going to make the playoffs again this year, and I can't wait for...
Bro, they're not going to contend for a playoff spot this year.
No, no, they're not. You are correct. Anyway, back to the Leafs. That's kind of we kind of just had a rundown of everything from forwards, defense, and goaltending, and I think on paper, like, if this makes sense, on paper, I'm not sure that overall it's a better team than it was on game 1 last year, and I think we can agree that uncertainty has to do with the goaltending. That is because of the uncertainty in the back end. We've established that. But I think it has an opportunity to be a more complete and a better team come playoff. Like, I don't think they're going to get as many points as they did in the regular season last year this year. But I think come playoff time, they have a little bit more opportunity to succeed there, if that makes sense. That's more what this team looks to be built for. And we haven't even talked about this, but Kyle Dubas's job depends on this team being successful in the playoffs this year, because oh man, he's so done if they don't make it past the first round.
Okay, like, so here's the thing, right? I don't see a scenario, unless the Leafs by like the halfway point of the season are 41-0. I don't see a scenario where he gets offered a contract during the year. And I think they're going to play it up as we don't want it to be a distraction thing. We'll worry about it at the end of the season, and that's fair play. That's what you do.
They just won't renew.
Yeah, I don't think there will be an offer to renew before the end of the season, which means this season is entirely up. Like, his career in Toronto is dependent on this season.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree with that, and that's what everybody is kind of thinking, though, right? Is you really, like, your entire career is dependent on this season, and you put your faith in Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov? Like, that's what your career depends on now, man. Is Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov. Like, that was your real bet. Because it was clearly stated that he was given this information that he was not going to have his contract renewed, like, right after the season ended.
Yeah. So
he made the decision in net after getting that news. A little bit of an interesting tidbit there.
Yeah, I mean, he's really living and dying by the fucking X2 Greyhounds, is he not?
Living and dying by Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov. I don't know that I'd make that decision, but again, like we said in the last couple seasons that we had last year, or last couple episodes that we had last year before we finished for the summer on this podcast here, is like, what else was he supposed to do in net?
Yeah, like there was nothing really on the market for him.
Like, sign Jack Campbell to like the same contract that Edmonton signed him to, because I don't think that's in the cards if you want to sign the big four in 2, 3, and 4 years.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so it's
he
hard.
Had to play the cards he was dealt, and he wasn't dealt very good cards.
No,
I think he made the best of, or almost the best of, what he was dealt.
And usually there's a goaltending carousel in the NHL, so I don't know what the hell happened last year. Like, it just kind of, the year that we needed a goalie, the year that our goalie was up, nothing. He was the only one up.
Because really, like, I know we talked about it a bunch, but like the, best in quotations option on the market was probably Darcy Kemper.
Yeah, and that's not a great option.
Yeah, I saw that you're still in the 1B pool there for sure.
Yes. Yeah, you're not even in the top 10 of goaltenders in the league, right? Like, not even close. I don't think. Anyway, so that's all I got about the Leafs. So you got in.
Yeah, I think the Habs is going to be a lot of the same stories from last year of
so
young
other
guys
than Jack Guy, who else can take a position on the back end there? Out of these young guys that you say they're not everyday NHL guys, but
so really in terms of like a real NHL defenseman, we have Mike Matheson, David Savard, Joel Edmondson, and Chris Weidman. So we have four, like, those guys are going to be playing. So these two spots, I mean, Justin Bering, Jordan Harris, Arbor Jacki, Matthias Norlinder, Caden Gooley is another one. He's looked fucking phenomenal in preseason as well. I think like there's like those five guys for sure, and then there's other kind of the AHL guys that bumped up last year. Look, like Corey Schoenman looked great. Xavier Ouellet looked great last year. Not exactly young guys, but still just really solid players. If I had to put money on opening night lineup, I would probably put Jordan Harris in. And I'm looking at this depth chart here. Anyway, from everything I've seen, I probably Arbor Jacki. Like, and that's not me just being like a hype man. Like, he has been super impressive like this off season or this preseason. Like, he's looked fucking great. And yeah. I think he's earned the chance to lose that spot. That's what I will say. But I mean, I would not be surprised to see any of those six guys in the lineup and like rotating through the lineup this year.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Well, one more thing we should probably get to on this podcast is I'll let you do a little spiel for the Bitter Rivals podcast Fantasy League.
Yeah, so this year we have launched a fantasy league on Yahoo Sports. The link is going to be on YouTube. It'll be in the description. And elsewhere, we're just going to put it on all of our socials on Twitter and Instagram. So you guys who listen to us every week and think we're fucking morons and think to yourselves like, these guys have no idea what they're talking about, this is your chance to prove it. To fucking get in a fantasy league with us and prove that, you're smarter than us. Or what's more likely going to happen, we're going to prove, because me and you are going to finish 1-2 in this league. Like, straight up.
Yeah.
I don't, like, it's not going to be close. But we'll prove that we know what we're talking about. We're actually fucking smart as shit. And we are sorting out some prizes. Hopefully for at least top 3 we're going to try and get. Definitely you win it, we're getting you something for sure. We haven't quite worked out the prizes yet, but we've got a season to do that, so that's fine. So yeah, the link's going to be in the description. You can join the league, compete against us. We're going to do a live draft. It'll probably be right before the season starts. Give us time to fill the league out. And yeah, it's your chance to compete against us, win some prizes, and let us fucking slap you around in a fantasy league.
Yeah. There you go. There it is. And we, like Gitano said, we will be posting all of those things all over the socials. And you will have the opportunity to take us on. Keep the names PG, please. We will be discussing this on the podcast. There's several ways to contact us: Instagram DMs, Twitter DMs. You can send us
if you know us personally, just fucking like text us.
Ask us a question if you want to join, and we'll give you the information that we have at that point in time. Anyway, thank you everybody for listening this week. You can find us everywhere. You already know where it is. And yeah, thanks for listening again this week. And we will see you next week for episode 66 and soon coming episode 69. Just saying. Hey. Anyway, thank you. Keep us locked in next Sunday too. Thank you. Bye now.